Welcome to another edition of the Ross Raider Wrap-Up. I'm Matt Errolson, and this is the all-encompassing Raider Sports Show. So we have with us not only the athletic director, but of course the baseball coach for the Richmond Raiders, Ricky Young. Really appreciate it, Ricky. So we've had other coaches here on the show, and the first thing I want to ask you is, how long have you been the coach of the Raiders baseball team, first of all?
We moved up here in 2009. August of 2009, started at Richmond, so it's been a few years.
Yeah, going on a decade almost.
Yes, almost.
All right, well, that's great. So first of all, let's take a look at last year before we look at this upcoming year. So how'd you guys end up last year overall?
Well, we ended up, we lost in the second round of the playoffs. We beat a very good Davie County team in the first round. They had a left-hander going to ECU, really good pitcher. I thought we played really well and won that game. And we had a chance to go on the road and play East Forsyth. They were the number 2 seed in the West. Had them on the ropes. We were up 2-1 going to the bottom of the 6th, and we made a couple miscues, and they ended up winning the game. But overall, it was a good year.
All right. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's take a look at the upcoming season, which is going to be starting here very soon. Breaking your team down as far as class, what are you expecting this year moving forward?
Well, as far as class, it's the largest senior class I've ever had.
Okay.
We've got 12 seniors. We'll end up with probably 20 kids on the roster altogether, so we're really senior heavy, but we've got a good mixture of some juniors and a sophomore who will also contribute some good things to the team.
All right, so with that being said, with such a big senior leadership, what are the positives? Obviously, being able to have some experience, but that included, what are some of the positives of having a senior-laden team?
Well, I think defensively we're going to be pretty good. I mean, I think that we'll be able to pitch to contact. That's going to be our philosophy, try to pitch to contact, make the plays. I think offensively we'll be able to put some pressure on people like we like to do. I think our season will really revolve around how well we pitch. We lost our 3 top pitchers, Jonathan Lee, Trey Watkins, and Drew Loving. They had the most innings of anybody returning. But we've got some guys who've got some experience and got some good arms and can pitch. It's just they're going to have to step up in these big games and take control.
Yeah, that was kind of going to be my next question. I know you guys in the past have focused on good starting pitching and good defense. That sounds like something you're going to lean on again this year.
Right, definitely. I think it'll be more of a pitching by committee type deal this year. Like I said, we've got a good mixture of different styles of pitching. I think we can mix and match throughout the game. So it's going to be a little different in that sense, but I think overall it's going to be a good mix for us.
And another thing I noticed you guys have done in the past is try to put pressure on the defense by trying to steal a lot of bases. Is that something you're going to try to do this year?
Yeah, that's always been my philosophy since I've been a head coach. I kind of took that from my college coach, Coach Austin at Methodist. That's kind of the way we did things, and it's been very successful. We don't have a lot of guys who are going to sit up there and hit 10 or 12 home runs, so we want to put pressure on people, try to bunt, try to steal, try to take an extra base.
All right. And as far as moving forward here, so this regular season starts when?
The first regular season game will be February 27th, I think, that Wednesday. We go to Anson.
Okay. So before that, you guys got some scrimmages coming up? Got to get ready?
Today we actually have a scrimmage at Pine Forest. We'll play Pine Forest and Green Hope. And then next Saturday we go to South Meck. We will play West Stanley and Panther Creek at South Meck.
All right. And then before the season starts, every team likes to have some goals, some things they want to accomplish. Obviously, a state championship is one of those. But along the way, what are some things you and your team want to accomplish?
Well, I think every year we try to stress getting better as the year progresses. You want to be playing your best ball by the end of the year, not the beginning of the year. Obviously, we'd like to win the conference. That's always a goal, win the conference tournament, and then, try to have success in the state playoffs.
All right. Ricky Young, head coach of Richmond Raider Baseball, of course, athletic director as well. Appreciate you joining us, and good luck this season.
Thank you, Matt.
So we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Dion's going to join the desk. We're going to have all of your highlights from basketball and every other Raider sport right here on the Wrap-Up.
I'm Joey Bennett, Director of Cole Auditorium, and this is Emily Tucker from the Richmond County Chamber of Commerce, and we're here in the Cole Auditorium. We've got a whole new series of shows we're announcing for 2019, and we're very excited about who we're bringing to Richmond County.
So, Joey, what do I have to look forward to?
We have 3 fabulous shows that we're so excited about that are going to be right here at Cole Auditorium. Scotty McCreary, Craig Morgan, and Hotel California.
And where do I go to find these tickets?
You call us here at the box office, 910-410-1691, or come by and see us.
McNair Auto Sales is the place to buy your pre-owned car, truck, or van. To be the best, it takes big selection, friendly staff, and great pricing. We guarantee a no-hassle buying experience, and financing is available right on site. So come see us today. We're located at 1026 East Broad Avenue in Rockingham. And remember, with over 40 years of experience, you know McNair is the name you can trust.
Willow Tree Antiques and Gifts is all about rustic home decor and gifts. You will always find a variety of unique antiques, vintage, and new items in our shop. Come and see our selection of housewarming, new baby, and wedding gifts. For the man in your life, we have many collectibles, Boker knives, and leather. And ladies love the jewelry, purses, candles, hats, and t-shirts. We also offer a 30-day layaway program. Come and experience shopping at Willow Tree Antiques and Gifts.
And welcome back to the Ross Raider Wrap-Up. Of course, we really appreciate baseball head coach and athletic director Ricky Young for joining us. Also joining us now, Dion Cranford. What's up, buddy?
Not much, just enjoying some more Raider sports this week. It's been a fun one. We've had a lot of exciting stuff going on, but, a couple of things didn't go our way. But.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that here in just a minute. But, Kyle put out a story on the Richmond Observer talking about spring sports are starting to get started. Mm-hmm. It's one of the reasons why we wanted to have Coach Young on here. And, he talked about some things that they've relied on in the past. They're going to continue to do this season. Of course, they lost 3 really, really good pitchers that graduated, but this year they're gonna the strategy is to rely on pitching, perhaps by committee this year. Of course, want to put pressure on the opposing defenses by stealing a lot of bases. Also want to play some great defense themselves, and then Ricky said that as far as on offense, they want to try to scratch out a few runs per game. So sounds like they're kind of going to go with the status quo this year.
Yeah, I'd like to see them do a lot better at the bat this year.
Yeah.
I know they're going to have to make a lot of changes in pitching, but last year, and you and I were both there when Jonathan Lee pitched a no-hitter against Hoke. It's the first 7-inning no-hitter in school history. So it's hard to replace something like that.
Right.
When you can get that kind of performance on the mound. So if they are going to have to do a lot of changes on the mound, we're going to need to see a lot of improvements at the plate.
Yeah, and Coach Young even said, our offense is not one where you're going to have guys hitting 10, 15 home runs. Mm-hmm. So with that being expected, they're going to have to play what I call station-to-station baseball, where you get them on, get them over, and get them in. So
and they always have great speed, so it's never been a problem moving once you get them on there. So.
Absolutely, and of course they're playing their first scrimmage of the season later on this afternoon. So of course, good luck to them. So, instead of looking forward about baseball, let's move backwards and talk about the Richmond Raider basketball teams who played on, Tuesday night? Seems forever ago.
It does. It does. They played Tuesday against 71st after beating Lumberton, which was their 8th conference win in a row.
Yeah.
They had to go up against a tough 71st team. Of course, 71st has only lost 3 games this year. 2 to Pinecrest and then 1 to Richmond. 71st is a really good program. I think they've won like 18, 19 games this season.
Yeah.
So it was going to be a tough outing. I really felt like the Raiders just had like everything perfect when they went to 71st a few weeks ago and actually beat them. A matter of fact, it came down to the very end of the game. That score in the final seconds. So,
right.
It was going to take a lot to sweep a team like 71st because they really are a good program, and unfortunately they came out on the short side of that one. So.
Yeah, they did, and also unfortunately 71st jumped out really big early on and never looked back. But we were there for the game, and we were able to catch head coach Donald Pettigrew after the game. Here's his thoughts on the team's performance Tuesday night.
Pettigrew, coach, they say all good things must come to an end. Unfortunately, that was the case for you guys' 8-game winning streak. But during that streak, what have you learned about your team?
Oh, man, they're resilient, man. Resilient, and there's no quitting. Got a lot of fight in them. So, we still got 1 game left. Hopefully we get number 3 seed, which is still good. So, we're trying to continue to get better for the playoff.
So, regarding that winning streak, I know you said in the past that you guys were able to overcome some slow starts. What was the difference tonight, though, against the Falcons?
Slow start. We got off to a slow start. There's ready to play. We came out a little flat. I got to do a better job as a coach, get my guys ready. And free throws hurt us tonight, too. We missed free throws. We got to knock down free throws, man.
And as you just mentioned, you guys have 1 more game against Scotland to finish out. What do you guys need to do to finish out strong heading into the playoffs?
Oh, man, it's going to be tough, man. It's a rivalry. We got to come ready to play. We got to come ready to play. Come ready to play and, be aggressive, and I think we'll be fine.
And then finally, Coach, tonight obviously was senior night. What do the 4 seniors on your team mean to the team and to the program overall?
Man, a whole lot, man. They was here when I started. I coached some 4 guys at AAU. Started coaching 4 guys at AAU. So, I mean, it means a lot to the program, man. We're going to miss them, you know. But we know we still got a long journey. You know, it ain't over yet. So, I mean, we got a lot of basketball left.
So that was Coach Pettigrew after the game, and of course it was senior night for them and the girls team, and of course both coaches, and we've got some quotes from Teddy later on in the show, but both of them talked about how important the seniors are to the teams each year, of course. But one of the main things he talked about was, playing a solid game start to finish, and as I mentioned before we took that little break there, 17-0 was the start for 71st. I mean, I know basketball is a game of runs, but how do you come back from that?
Well, and actually, Richmond had the first basket with a three-pointer, but then 17 straight points from 71st.
That's what it was,
I mean, so they got a lead for about 5-6 seconds, and then it just kind of went downhill from there. And it's hard to come back from something like that. I mean, and this team has actually come back from double-digit deficits this year. But when you just fall so far, so fast, so early, I mean, it messes with your mind. It is senior night, just so much going on. You're trying to impress. You got you guys out there with the cameras, but no
added pressure.
Yeah, in all seriousness, no, there's a lot going on, and you have to realize that these are 15, 16, 17-year-old kids, and they did what they could, and I'm proud of them for fighting through it, because it could have been easy to just throw in the towel at that point. And
Absolutely,
they wrote it out.
Yeah, and matter of fact, I mean they chipped away there towards the second half. I mean, in all honesty, that 66-42 score could have been worse. Mm-hmm. So I agree. Kudos to them for not giving up and playing as hard as you can throughout the game. Just noticing watching them live though, as compared to the way they played during that 8-game winning streak. I understand it's 71st. Perhaps their defense is one of the better ones we've seen all year. Mm-hmm. But it just seems like we were missing a lot of shots. We weren't able to. We get the ball down low, and I've seen in the past, if the shot wasn't there, you kick it back out to an open man. Didn't seem to be as many open three-point shooters. And also, they weren't able to come down with as many rebounds, it felt like. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I mean, and we've talked about that before. Richmond has just dominated the boards, in a lot of these games, and these second, third chance points have been big. But one thing we noticed last week against Lumberton, even though Richmond won that game handedly, there were a lot of fast break possibilities that just never happened. A couple of missed dunks. Yeah. We had 3-on-1 opportunities going the other way, and a bad pass or a missed shot. So you got to convert those when you get those opportunities, especially against a good team like this, because you're not going to get those second chance, third chance, points to get them on the board. But again, I mean, our guys were resilient. They fought back, and they did all they could do. But unfortunately, they were just in too big of a hole to climb out of.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned the first go-around against 71st, where we were able to go to their house and pick up a win. Mm-hmm. Comparatively, between the two games, what do you think one of the biggest differences was between that win and this loss?
Probably, just the expectation of opponents. I mean, you got to think when Richmond went to 71st the first time, the Raiders were kind of at the bottom of the standings,
right.
And they were kind of trying to fight their way out. They had just had that big win against the Lumberton.
Kind of nothing to lose mentality.
And they came in to play hard. Nigel Stroman had a big game. A couple other guys had a big game in that one. And, 71st probably wasn't expecting that much out of Richmond in that game. I mean, it's a top team versus a bottom team. Whereas this time, 71st knew to bring their A game. Yeah. And I'm not saying that they didn't play well in the last one, but they knew to come in and expect great things from Richmond. And they knew that this was also with a conference title on the line. So It was just a different mentality.
And speaking of Nige, he's been probably our best player over this last month, basically. Mm-hmm. But again, 71st kind of shut him down. And I don't have his exact points, but it hasn't been nearly on par with what he's usually been scoring.
Yeah, and I mean, again, that has a lot to do with, I noticed that Najee was spending a lot of time outside the arc, which was a little bit different for me, in terms of observing that game. He did try to get into the paint a lot, but I think they were trying to keep him away from the net because they are used to him coming down with those rebounds and him going back up and getting those points. So that could have a little bit to do with it, but in all honesty, you're talking about 71st, which is not only one of the state's best teams, but is one of the state's best programs in basketball. This isn't a huge blow, a huge loss. And in all honesty, I can see both of these two playing for the tournament title next week. So they might get chance 3.
Sounds good to me. Of course, the playoffs are at hand. And as we currently sit, 71st in first place. That's decided now, isn't it, no matter what happens?
Yeah, no matter what happens, 71st has won the conference.
And Pinecrest will be second, and Richmond will be third. So no matter what happens, Richmond's going in as the 3 seed. So,
but the good news is that 8-game run put them in the playoffs. I
Absolutely.
mean, as a 3 seed, no matter what happens in the conference tournament, they're in.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, as the song goes, started at the bottom, now they're here. So I think it's a heck of a run. Of course, we'll keep you up to date as we move into the SEC tournament with that. So let's move to the women's side of the court. Of course, Lady Raiders played before the guys. Also, senior night for them. Unfortunately, they allowed the Lady Falcons to also get out to a big lead and fell 59-33.
well, I mean, much like the boys' game, this was a 17-1 run. So, I mean, very similar. As a matter of fact, the Lady Raiders only had 1 point in the entire first quarter.
Yeah.
They really struggled. And I'll be honest with you, once again, 71st defense was just, I mean, they were brutal. I mean, it was a lot of swatting at the ball, a lot of physical play. These girls knew how to play. They knew how to play defense. I mean, they were prepared for this. They didn't, and they dominated and never really let up. So they weren't going to let Richmond kind of fight their way back into it. But one thing I'll say is, again, shooting has been a big issue in high school football in general. You're seeing a lot of basketball, football. Goodness gracious, let's shoot some football.
Shoot it through the uprights.
Yeah, high school basketball in general, because you're seeing a lot of these teams put a lot of focus on stealing, blocking, rebounding, and then they get an open look and they're launching it 3 feet over the net. You've got to really, once you get in there, stay focused, make those shots. We saw especially in the first half of that ball game, a lot of opportunities to make a basket, but they just weren't able to connect.
Yep, and I really noticed that the rest were calling a lot of fouls, it felt like, early on, but that's because the Lady Falcons were reaching in. Sometimes they got a foul. It seemed like a lot of times they got the turnover. And, of course, talking about playing the first half versus the second half, head coach Teddy Mosley for the Lady Raiders also took some time out after the game. Here's his thoughts on his team's performance.
Regarding tonight's game, so it seems like between the first and second half, it was a completely different game. You guys cut into the lead in the second half. So talk a minute about the difference between the first half and the second half from your team.
That's been the story of our entire season. Slow starts, we dig ourselves in the hole, and then the second half, we play hard in the second half. We have to play hard the entire game. Against good teams like that, we can't afford to dig ourselves in the hole. I mean, we were down, 36-7 at one point, somewhere along in there. Against a good team like that, you can't afford to do that,
So this was senior night, and we're going to talk about that here in just a second. Okay. But still 1 game left in the regular season. Oh, yeah. So what do you guys need to do to go out on a high note?
Just keep working hard, keep grinding. We still got we still have a chance to make the playoffs, but we can't continue to lose. I mean, we got 1 game left, so we've got to have this next game and then at least a couple in the conference tournament.
And then finally, Coach, tonight, obviously senior night.
Yes.
So talk just a minute about what your seniors have meant to your team this year.
Oh, they've been everything to us. They've been the backbone for us. They've expressed nothing but leadership for us. And it's been a great group, and really sad to see them go. I really am.
All right. So, yeah, that's what Coach Mosley had to say. Of course, giving props to his girls for senior night. But he said, just kind of like Pettigrew did, we got to put a good first half and a good second half together. And unfortunately, that's something it seems like Lady Raiders been dealing with all season long.
Yeah, but they've been inconsistent, but there's a lot of promise there. There's some young players on that team. It's going to be interesting to see where the Lady Raider program goes going forward. But I think there's a lot of promise there for the future. I think this season, in terms of what they can do, is probably over. I don't see them doing very well in the conference tournament, just simply because there is a lot of really good teams in this conference,
right.
And it would. Their chances of a playoff spot are pretty slim at this point. They would almost have to win the conference tournament to get in, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, much like the boys' team, they actually seems like they copied the Lady Raiders, who only managed 7 points in the first half and trailed 34-7 at the break. And again, it's just another example of how difficult it is, even in basketball, to come back and claw your way out of a hole like that.
And there's been several of us have conversations about this. I personally feel like girls' basketball games are much more physical.
It felt that way, yeah.
They're really very physical, and when you can get a team like 71st who isn't afraid to just attack, they're hard to beat.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we saw. As you mentioned, a lot of swatting at the ball, and it seemed like more often than not they were able to create some turnovers. Moving forward, they had, 4 seniors, I believe, on the Lady Raiders team. So I would imagine for the future, in the next couple of years, as those underclassmen, start to get older, a little more experienced, what do you think the ceiling is for the Lady Raiders team?
Well, I mean, right now you had, a couple of freshmen on the team this year.
Right.
a couple of sophomores, and I know you had at least 2 juniors. So I'm probably going to go there. Probably 3 juniors, I think. So I mean, again, there's room to grow there. I could see them, being a top 3 in the conference team next year. Like I said, the biggest thing right now is, a lot of those younger players have to get the experience, but I think they've got the talent.
Yeah.
I think they've got the talent to do it. They just got to get the experience, and that's what this year was kind of about for them. So.
And we're going to go down a level later on in the show and talk about the middle school games. But if you're looking at the Hamlet and Rockingham girls teams, there's some talent down there waiting to come up, too.
Oh, absolutely.
So something
to
look forward to in the future. All right, well, that's going to do it for basketball right now. Of course, we'll have all the updates as we move into the playoffs for them as well, hoping that they make it there. But let's move to the mat. Let's talk about Raider Wrestling and big day for Skylar Standridge.
Well, yeah, Skylar Standridge was the only Raider to make it to the state tournament or state titles, whatever they call it.
State championship.
State championship. But he finished 4th in the regionals in the 220-pound weight class. That was at Davie County High School last week. And actually, the state championship started this week. He unfortunately lost his first match to Ishmael Williams of Audrey Kell.
Yep.
We were waiting for results on his second match. We're not sure how that one went, but congratulations to him for making it. I mean, that was a big deal to get a Richmond athlete in the state championships.
And head coach Nicholson, Ed Nicholson, head coach Nicholson was at the basketball games, and I took a moment out during one of the breaks to just talk to him and told him congratulations to Skylar. But I mean, it's tough to find a better wrestling coach than him, isn't it?
No, I mean, and the man does everything. We've talked about it before. I don't know when he sleeps, but he took that middle school team to the championship. He's got a lot of young wrestlers coming up as freshmen and on up into that varsity squad. I'm excited about next year's wrestling. I mean, I know that's an unusual sport, probably in this area because it's not a really big wrestling region.
Sure.
But I'm excited to see what they can do next year because they've got some good talent coming up, and I think those boys are going to be a force to be reckoned with next year.
Yeah, and I messed my names up. It's not Ed, it's Earl. I don't know where I got that from. But his son, another one, who had a really good season. I think it was in the 113-pound class, but it's in his blood, right?
Oh, yeah. And I also want to mention, I talked to Earl at the game, too, and, he walked his daughter in another – he said, that's another senior night down. I said, another one. He said, yeah, we did tennis. Night we're doing basketball, and then we got soccer in the spring. So he's got one more before she graduates. So, but congratulations to him on all he's doing because he's doing a wonderful job. And another thing, to get that much attention onto wrestling, there's a lot more people paying attention than I think ever before to that sport. So he's doing a good job.
Absolutely. And just because the Sandhills per se is not a big wrestling area doesn't mean that it can't be in the future. So
no.
I'd like to see Richmond lead that charge as we move forward. Speaking of moving forward, let's leave the mat and let's head to the lanes. And we're talking about bowling. So just to read a couple of these and I'll let you get into it. The boys finished 3rd in the Sandhills Athletic Conference Tournament in Fayetteville on Thursday. The top 3 got into the state tournament. So participating were seniors Tyler Bass, Cameron Caraway, Denautica Everett, and Evan Hudson. And then we had a couple sophomores in Mitchell Massey and Jonathan Rich. So take it from there.
Well, I mean, they've been doing well all season. I'm excited to see these guys make it because they were always, and we talked about this before, they were always in the middle of those standings. So they really needed a big finish in that championship, and they got it because the top 3 teams got in. And that they've actually already competed in the state championship. That was in Lumberton. So, I believe it was in Lumberton because the regional was in Fayetteville. About said the wrong thing. So we'll see how that kind of came out. But they entered the tournament as the 5 seed and were only averaging about 137 pins per game. But when they defeated Hope 3-1 in the first round, they actually bowled over that 137 every single game.
Nice.
I ain't going to go through all the scores, but they did have 176 to 109 in the 4th game. And at the time, that was their second highest score of the season. They actually altered that later on in the game because they, in the second part of that tournament, they lost to Lumberton 3-0. Lumberton swept them, but that's one of the top teams in the conference in bowling. But then they had to face Jack Britt in the 3rd round, and they beat Jack Britt 3-0. And in that one, they bowled a 190, which was actually their highest game of the season.
Yeah.
So
But if you're, I mean, interrupt
Improving
you.
a lot, yeah.
If you're head coach Ralph Butler, isn't this, it's still a young program.
Mm-hmm.
You basically at this point you just want to see improvement from the beginning to the end of the season, and haven't we seen that?
We have. I mean, every week we've covered bowling, it's been like, okay, this is a new high. This is a new high. This is a new high. And also, I actually skipped over, speaking of new highs, in the series against Hoke, they had a 638, which is their highest series this season. So, they're definitely improving as the season goes.
And as far as in the playoffs for bowling, it's a different format than the regular season, is it not?
Oh, yeah. Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, they're still bowling, in the Baker's format, but for the individual bowlers, when they're bowling individually, they're just bowling the entire games themselves.
Right. So, there you got it. So, unfortunately, no boys advanced to the state tournament. Of course, Savannah Lampley said anything the boys can do, the girls can do better, and she actually did head to the state tournament. So, as you mentioned, we're hoping to get some results from that.
Well, and just to clarify, no boys advanced to the individual.
That's what I meant.
The team
individual,
did.
yeah.
The team did.
Yeah, sorry. That's what I meant there. But, of course, good luck to Savannah as well.
And I will mention that Savannah actually already has competed in the state tournament. She finished 8th out of 33 bowlers in the state championship.
Boom! There you go.
So we actually got that right before we went on the air. So congratulations to Savannah, because that's a pretty big accomplishment for bowling in this area.
Absolutely. Congratulations to her. And you see, we fact-checked here. All right. So speaking of the ladies, if you don't think cheerleading is a sport, shame on you. But us here at the Wrap-Up do, and we've got some cheerleading news. So heading down to the, I used to call it junior high, but middle school level, the Rockingham Rockets finished second place in the middle school non-tumbling division at the North Carolina Cheerleading Coaches Association State Cheerleading Championship. Now, I'll be honest with you. I don't know what non-tumbling means, but I can't do any of it, so it doesn't matter what I think.
I would think anything you're doing, you don't want to tumble.
Yeah, that's a good point. Or fall or drop or any of that.
Especially not with what they're doing.
Absolutely. But with that being said, of course, the Richmond County Elite won first place in 6 different divisions at the state championship at the Crown Coliseum in Fayetteville. So they get to head to Disney World. I believe that's July 7th. So congratulations to them.
And I would like to mention tonight they have a fundraiser at
Yes.
Cole Auditorium. So if you're interested in helping support them, check the Richmond Observer for information on that. So.
Absolutely. I believe it's a princess ball.
So well, I might pass.
That's up your alley, Dion. You need to go. But again, congratulations to everybody. And you know who else gets invited to go to Disney World is the Super Bowl MVP. So I'm putting them on the same level as Julian Edelman. So I hope they have some fun down in Florida. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to head down a level again, talk about middle school basketball. I'm just going to let you roll with this because you were on top of all that.
Well, I mean, Rockingham and Hamlet, what better way to end the season than to playing for the title? And it was exciting to have them play. Unfortunately, the game, overall wasn't that great. Rockingham kind of jumped out to an 8-0 lead and then just kind of cruised from there.
Sure.
They won 33-17 over Hamlet in the title game. And this was, of course, after Hamlet kind of upset them last year in the playoffs, so they kind of got back in there. Teresa Mason, it was her 7th title in the last 8 seasons with Rockingham, so kind of bringing that hardware back to the Rockets.
And I know you're a Hamlet guy, and I'm a Rockingham guy, but I got to tell you, Dion, that sounds like a dynasty to me.
That does sound like a dynasty. It's good to see a sport that Carver out of Scotland County isn't dominating, so I'm kind of glad they're...
But for that game, Jemiah Lindsay led the Lady Rockets with 13 points. Adriana Davis had 12. Kiani Nichols entered the game with 4 points of her own. Joy Stiles, Sinedra Henson each chipped in 2 points.
And I do want to say,
scored.
Kiani Nichols, she had 4 points, but she was a huge factor in that game. She had an outstanding game. Controlled the offense, really almost single-handedly controlled the tempo of the game.
Yeah.
She did a fantastic job. So I do want to mention she contributed a lot more than 4 points to that game.
Absolutely. Of course, congratulations to them. Lady Rockets finished 11-0, so that's really great. As far as the boys' teams, Rockingham 7-4, Hamlet 7-4. They both unfortunately fell in the conference semifinals at Carver, who you just mentioned, and East Hoke. However, East Hoke got the better of Carver.
Kind of surprised me a little bit, and going back, Hamlet struggled with East Hoke. East Hoke just dominated the season. They finished undefeated. But Rockingham went to Carver and nearly pulled it off. It was 53-50. So good job by the Rockingham guys, because I honestly did not think that one was going to be that close. And then Carver then went to East Hoke in the title game, and East Hoke won 39-35. So a couple of good finishes there in the boys' side. Just unfortunate it didn't land in Richmond counties.
Now, you've got in your notes here that East Hoke also finished 11-0. So why did it surprise you a little that Carver wasn't able to win?
Well, why did it surprise me Carver wasn't able to win? I'm not so surprised Carver. I'm just used to seeing Carver at the top of all these standings. Right. And actually, I think East Hoke may have even beat Carver a little bit worse earlier in the season when they played. So,
All right. And then to end our show, the Counts Richmond Raider page put up a poll. Of course, is it safe to say that you are actually the Count? Am I giving anything away?
No. I'm pretty sure everybody knows that.
Well, it's too late because it's on tape now. But the poll that you put up was which rivalry is better, and I'm going to let you get the results and explain it here a little bit. Richmond versus Scotland, or if you want to go old school, Rockingham versus Hamlet. So first, what are your thoughts on it? Second of all, how'd the poll end up?
Well, one of the main reasons I threw the poll up is because, you had Rockingham and Hamlet playing and then Richmond Scotland playing like on back-to-back days. So I thought it would be interesting to see people's take on it.
Sure.
I pretty much just assumed that the Richmond Scotland thing would kind of dominate for a couple of reasons. One, because of the huge fan base. For the other thing is you did have a lot of people outside the county voting in it that don't know anything, about Rockingham and Hamlet. So I wasn't really too surprised by the results, but personally, when you think about longevity and when you think about how big this rivalry is, Rockingham and Hamlet have been high school rivals, have been junior high rivals, have been middle school rivals. They played on different levels. They play on multiple sports, and you can't really go to a game between the two in any sport with pretty much out of packed house. So.
Yeah, and didn't you say that rivalry has been going on for 100 years?
Started in 1916, so 102 years. Oh, well, I guess 103.
103 years. That's incredible. I didn't realize that the streak was that long.
Well, what was interesting was even after the schools merged to form Richmond, the two schools were still playing in ninth grade sports.
Okay.
So those freshman teams kept the high school count going, and I think when the junior highs actually became middle school, Rockingham and Hamlet had the longest high school rivalry in the state.
Wow.
So that's probably been killed since they don't no longer play at the high school level anymore. But
Now, me personally, I voted for Hamlet versus Rockingham. And I'll say the same thing I said either last week or week before last, that when you're at it was junior high for us, middle school now, when you're at that level, it's Rockingham versus Hamlet. And then, of course, everybody becomes a Raider, and then it's Richmond versus Scotland. Of course, I can also remember when it was Richmond-Anson was a big rival.
Yeah.
But anyway, we moved on from that. However, I've also felt like after everybody graduates, if you're from Rockingham or from Hamlet, you go back to that rivalry. At least that's how I see it. So that's why I voted Rockingham-Hamlet because, like for instance, you're from Hamlet, so we trash talk every once in a while. I've got some other friends that went to Hamlet. We trash talk when it comes time for sports. So.
Well, another thing is that rivalry kind of sticks. You got people that maybe even coach at Richmond, teach at Richmond, whatever, that have now transferred to other school systems, or maybe even have gone to Scotland County. But Rockingham and Hamlet's still a rivalry to them. So.
And when it comes to Richmond versus Scotland, everyone automatically thinks football. And I'm not saying that other rival games against Scotland and other sports aren't as big, but as you mentioned, when it's Rockingham Hamlet, it can be baseball, softball,
they
football,
could be playing
whatever.
checkers. It don't matter.
And the house is packed. I think that's one of the difference makers. So, with all that being said, how'd the poll end up?
All right, well, the poll ended up pretty much like expected. On Facebook, it was 74% for Richmond, Scotland, 26% for Rockingham and Hamlet. And on Twitter, it was 79% Richmond, Scotland, and 21% Rockingham, Hamlet.
Wow, it wasn't even close.
Nope.
Oh, well. Maybe a lot of Ellerby Middle and Rohannon people voting in it.
Yeah, we gotta make sure we include them.
The ones that got
left.
It's Cordova
now.
That's right. Well, yeah, but back then it was always Rohannon, Rockingham, Hamlet, and Ellerby. Of course, they all joined together to make Richmond seniors. So. All right, that's going to do it for the wrap-up. Of course, we really appreciate baseball head coach and athletic director for the high school, Ricky Young, joining us earlier in the program. Of course, Deanna, we always appreciate you being here as well. I'm Matt Harrelson, and we'll see you right back here next week on the Raider Wrap-Up. We'll have all of your updates from all of the fall sports, or rather winter sports, finishing up. Have a great week.